Yeah? No? Yeah? Cool. Welcome to the last talk, second? Last talk of the day in the main hall. We've got Jay who's going to talk about an introduction to information security. So, take it away.
Cheers. Afternoon. So I realise it's the end of what's a pretty long day, and it's only the keynote after this. So it kind of falls to me to lift all your spirits at some point and end on something a bit of a lighter note than some of the technical talks you've had. So my name's Jay, and if there's one thing I love more than information security, it's the undead. And I particularly love seeing them meet grisly ends in all sorts of interesting, creative ways, providing us with some sort of lessons about information security along the way. Before we get started, a little warning though. This talk will feature graphic depictions of decapitation, disembowelment, and of course, brains. It will not feature fluffy bunnies, unless, of course, they're being decapitated, disemboweled, or having their brains eaten by the undead. So, if seeing brains get spattered by a group of gung-ho zombie Holocaust survivors isn't your thing, I suggest you find your safe space now. Oh, there may be the odd swear word as well, but hey, if you had the undead coming towards you, trying to eat your brains, you'd say probably a little bit more than oops. All right then, let's get messy. So some people's childhoods were filled with climbing trees, making dens, and running around with their friends, playing cowboys and Indians with each other. I spent my youth covering myself in green paint, walking around with a fake limp and trying to eat my friends' faces off. Now, that probably sounds like a normal childhood in Wales to you, but mine was more due to my love of zombie films from a very early age, thoughts of the coming undead apocalypse. Pretty cheery stuff for an 8-year-old. So, while most of my childhood friends dreamed about growing up to be astronauts or firemen, I dreamed of a world chock full of cool ways to kill zombies. So, fast forward a fair chunk of time, and it seems the security world is borrowing terms of the films of my youth. We talk about mass DDoS attempts by zombified computers and things like, oh, the epidemic is spreading. So is it any wonder we use easily understood terms like that when the security world is full of confusing jargon like this? I mean, anyone would think all these slang and acronyms were to stop people from getting involved in security at all, instead of fostering the idea that security is everyone's responsibility, really. I mean, try talking to your local high street businesses about penetration testing, and you're going to get raised eyebrows, sniggers from some, rather than a look of concerned engagement than you really want to have. And as for people looking to break into the world of security as a job, it can sometimes feel like a bit of a closed shop, where the insiders keep their knowledge to themselves, and getting up to speed on some of the concepts can be a little bit tricky at times. Now, if there's one thing that is easy to understand, survival. So, let's have a little look into the world of zombie films and some of the important lessons that they can offer us, starting with some of the basic tenets of network security.
It's cold.
That's good, right?
I don't know, it's weird. I've never seen an infectious pathogen come with a fever.
You okay? Man, can I get you something, like a glass of water? Anna? Anna, come here.
Anyone know her name?
I don't have a name.
Guys, do you want to move into the other room? Holy shit!
Yes, classic kill. Fairly easy one to start with there, and I don't mean making sure you've got a handy fire poker lying around at all times. If you're going to survive past your first day in the undead Future, or managing corporate networks of some kind, you really should enforce quarantine and segregation controls at every opportunity you can. I mean, let's be honest, that woman looked pretty ill, yeah? And there she was, lying in the middle of a room with lots of perfectly healthy, definitely not dead people too. I mean, I'll admit, sure, she could have come in with a vicious case of the sniffles and a really bad sunbed job, but the consequences could have been considerably more serious there. She could have infected everyone she was around. If only maybe they'd thought of locking her away, observing her for a while, carrying out some tests before letting her mix into Gen Pop, then the emergency fire poker treatment wouldn't have been needed after all. And it should be the same when you consider allowing data to enter your networks too. All data should be screened before being allowed into environments of the EU control, which means email, attachments, things downloaded from the web, and data sent to you by your customers, your clients, and your business partners too. I mean, if you can't be sure whether it's safe, then you really should quarantine it until someone else can. And that extends to separating your network into zones of trust too. I mean, we've got the big red internet cloud over on the right there, as I prefer to call it, the Wild West. You know, and those people shouldn't just be allowed to connect into your networks and be able to do anything on your systems and services that they like. You might have your public-facing web servers that have some particular services running on them. The World Alliance can get through to those, but you ought to keep them segregated behind a firewall too, so people can't get straight to the crown jewels when you've got your databases with your financial data sitting on that. Wireless networks, you know, there's the old adage of it's kind of like throwing the network cables out of the window, really. Anyone can connect to that. And you're going to want to throw your wireless clients behind a firewall too. Great example, network segregation gone wrong. TJ Maxx breach, way back from 2007 now. So attackers got on through a very poorly configured wireless network and then got onward access to other parts of the network too, from where they were able to get hold of a load of employee credentials to access databases, and they started to harvest the credit card details of TJ Maxx's clients. So a conservative estimate was that 45 million credit card details were breached, possibly looking up to as much as 100 million. You know, those attackers were in the network for 18 months before they were found. And the total cost is estimated to be up to roughly 256 million bucks. So a not inconsequential thing. So let's have another little look at a bit of security 101.
Oh, toilets. Yes, toilet time.
Julian, what are you doing?
Just goes to show it's not just the toilets at Glastonbury that'll kill you. Lesson from this, anyone?
Use public toilets.
Around Waverley Station, sure, yeah. Well, a healthy sense of scepticism is a good thing to have in your security mindset. You know, going into the previous point about checking for malicious items to come into your network, you should really make sure the end users of your information systems are checking things that make it through our filters too. It's a common tactic for malware to hide inside seemingly useful pieces of software that are then made available on websites to download or send in via email for unsuspecting to click on and open up and run, usually when they're sitting on your nice protected corporate networks. I mean, even phishing scams have evolved over the years, changed from the emails offering almost too good to be true deals, the sorts of CEO whaling attacks that we see now, where attackers mimic a trusted or internal domain. And if we look at the highlighted bit in yellow up here, that's an RN masquerading as an M. You know, people can be easily fooled by these things. And then trying to lure someone with enough rights to authorise a very high-value payment to the person carrying out the attack here. And just in case you think this isn't really as much of a problem as it seems, well, the FBI has stated that CEO whaling has cost US businesses around $2.3 billion over the last 3 years. And in fact, last year, the CEO of an aircraft parts firm got fired after falling for one of these scams. It cost the company just shy of 41 million euros. So that's a fair dent. Okay, one more of the basics before we go into the rest of the stuff.
Get back inside! Come on! Get back inside! Here you go! There's 6 more people inside the truck! I'm in!
All right, so the first thing that does come to my mind is that looks a hell of a lot like Theresa May on top of that truck. But hey, hey. This one's actually a hotbed of advice, all crammed into one delightful nugget of brain-spattered loveliness. So if you dig a little bit deeper into the blood and the gore, well, what can we learn? Well, first and foremost, learn to value the importance of having a backup of some kind. When we talk about the pillars of security, people tend to focus on confidentiality and integrity, and they kind of leave availability to one side. But let's be perfectly honest about things. Availability is effectively the services that you need to deliver the business that you run. If you don't have those services in place at all, you're not going to generate any income or all those other nice things your company's supposed to be doing. So when you're faced with a horde of the undead, intent on having you for lunch, having a spare gun, going to get you out of a really tight hole. But if it's your organisation systems that you're trying to protect, then backing everything up before making that urgent change to your public-facing web server is a good means of rolling back should something go wrong. You know, there's a few things that's going to lose you your job quicker than an embarrassing outage that could have been prevented by hitting the big red backup button. Of course, a big issue for most organisations these days is ransomware. All of your important data gets scrambled by the bad guys who then demand a stack of cash in return for decrypting your files instead of making it into worthless junk for all time. And without backups, you're either going to have to pay, as one US police force did, very embarrassing for them. We do not negotiate with terrorists, online criminals, fine, or you're going to lose all of the data that you have, which again another US police force did. They lost 8 years' worth of digital evidence in one go. They claimed at the time not all of it was critical stuff, but there's a really great quote from one of the defence lawyers involved about whether it was critical data or not. He said, well, it depends what side of the jail cell you sit, really. And again, just in case you think this is solely a US police force issue, 57% of NHS trusts in Scotland have been hit by a ransomware attack, and right at the start of this year, the largest NHS trust in England got caught out too. Now, an extension of this is to have a really solid rollback plan as well. If you know you're going to be surrounded by hordes of flesh eaters, then keep one eye on your exit. It's not just wise, but it's probably going to save your life too. And you really should document your plan to return to your original state with information systems as well before you get your arm chewed off. Before someone notices an outage of some kind. Now, an important point from that scene as well is not to go solo on anything. You need to plan your security work in a team, spread the load out a bit, whether that's pulling in a multidisciplinary team from across your organisation as a whole, or outsourcing to experts that can do your 24/7 security monitoring on your behalf, then you need to involve each other. That's it. Day one done. You've dodged the first few zombie hordes, got trapped down a few dead ends and fought your way out with nothing but a dustbin lid and some sharp bits of drain pipe. Great. So let's start thinking about long-term survival in a world where everyone's out to attack us, there's danger behind every door, and we need a real mix of offensive and defensive skills in order to survive. What we call the modern threat landscape, really. So, limbered up, tied your shoelaces, cardio done. Let's crack on.
Little girl? I'm a policeman. Little girl.
She's not going to after-school club today, is she? But it's fine, because her sacrifice is to the benefit of the rest of us, as it perfectly illustrates the point. Never underestimate your opponent. We've moved on considerably from the days when it's solely bedroom hackers and crackers tinkering with online systems just for fun. We're into a world of highly organised, well-rehearsed, well-funded threat actors who have considerable experience in separating you from your data and your funds. Groups like the Russian Business Network, sounds a little bit Chamber of Commerce-y, that. They've been around for years, actively running botnets, pushing out spyware, and monetizing their activities through identity theft, stealing credit card details, all that nasty stuff. More recently, of course, the hot topic has been allegations of Russian involvement in the US election with crews like Fancy Bear, linked to attacks against the Democratic National Committee, and apparent misinformation campaigns too. And of course, there's this unassuming building on the outskirts of Shanghai, which supposedly houses a unit of the People's Liberation Army of China, whose mission is to hack foreign organisations and private businesses Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you know, like a normal job. There's a great interview with Obama from a few years back, and he's recounting a meeting with some Chinese officials, and he says, look, you know, you guys spy on us, we spy on you. Statesmanship, that's fairly fair. But for you to be constantly hacking the private companies, people like Apple and so on, in our country all the time for your economic gain, that's not on. The response was, you caught us. So, to be as brazen as that just shows that people are completely comfortable carrying out activities such as this. Now, a little bit closer to home, everyone's favourite ISP that they love to hate, TalkTalk. I'll be honest, I love these guys because they're awful. Lovely headline from the Daily Mail there. I mean, they really know how to whip up a frenzy. Yeah? I mean, TalkTalk's databases were breached by teenagers who made use of very easily exploited vulnerabilities in TalkTalk systems, resulting in the breach of almost 160,000 customer records. Now, the Information Commissioner, Elizabeth Denham, even went on record to say that TalkTalk's failure to implement the most basic cybersecurity measures allowed hackers to penetrate TalkTalk's system with ease. This resulted in a $400,000 fine and a considerable dent to confidence in the company too. Red faces all round.
In those moments when you're not sure the undead are really dead, don't get all stingy with your bullets. I mean, one more clean shot to the head. And this lady could have avoided becoming a human Happy Meal. Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Fairly straightforward lesson with that. Follow up on your actions. Or as I was thinking, you know, Uncle Joe Stalin used to say, trust but verify. If you're going to apply a patch to a system or make an infrastructure change, you should really verify it afterwards any time that you can. You know, make sure the thing you fixed hasn't introduced some other issues and the thing you were trying to fix did actually get fixed as well. There's a reason why the PCI data security standard for protecting payment card details states to carry out penetration testing after any major change, just to make sure you haven't messed up in any way. However, that's not everything. One of the biggest problems I see in various firms that I deal with, they'll commission penetration testing and invest a fair chunk of cash and a significant amount of time, and then have this big list of items that they need to fix. Seems pretty good. And yet I go back a year after that, and most, if not all, the vulnerabilities that we've seen are actually still there. No one's patched anything. They've eventually wasted all that investment of time and money in having the work. You know, and because these are old vulnerabilities that are in place and they've been in the public domain for a long time, it's much more likely at that point that someone with the skill level of a script kiddie could find an easily found exploit and own those systems there. You know, and that's quite a worrying graph from the Verizon data breaches report. There shows that when they last did the survey in 2015, it was known vulnerabilities from years past that actually used to compromise firms. You know, it's no good having a patching program if you don't actually do the patch part. So, there's some anecdotal tales about a commercial bank that I won't name that suffered an attack. They had a whole heap of vulnerable systems they knew about for quite a long amount of time and simply didn't fix them at all. Collective sigh. Let's look at something a little bit more heartening. Olympic level kill. You know, all this doom and gloom about highly rehearsed opponents, putting in a raft of technical security controls and layered defences usually makes your average security person shake a bit, especially when it comes to asking for funds to actually pay for things. You know, I always feel like security feels like it's a bit of an invisible thing, really. You know, how do you prove it is actually supporting the company to be secure and allow us to carry on going forwards as a commercial enterprise? It can be very difficult for us for investment in new tech unless you happen to have the ear of your chief exec or you're one of those silver-tongued security salesmen who will prophesy the end of the world with one hand and then a magic bullet to fix it all other. And if you're in a smaller firm or you're in a non-profit organisation of some kind, the funds probably aren't there anyway. So you're not going to be able to afford the latest shiny, all-singing, all-dancing, unified threat management box from one of those vendors in Gartner's upper right corner. You know the sort. They spend as much on the marketing as they do on their R&D and dev, and they've got to recoup that money somehow, and it might as well be out of your pocket. This is where you've got to learn to love open source. You know, community supported, often with years of strong development and implementation in organisations of all sizes. You can put in place some incredibly effective tools that usually don't cost anything beyond the initial investment of your time to learn how they work, and nothing ever bad came from learning new stuff, huh? You want an IDS? Guess not. You want to control devices connected to your network? Packet fence. Pretty much any commercial security tech has its free open source counterpart. A lot of even have commercial support packages going too, and it's going to be a fraction of what the shiny box version costs. So, finally, there's only one way to wrap this up with a reminder for all of us. Exactly stealthy. You can't argue with the effectiveness of it, though. I'll open this one up to the floor. What can this delightful piece of glory offer to us?
Scorch the earth.
Pretty much. You know, there's sometimes you just have to admit defeat, torch the whole thing, invoke your nuclear option, and start from scratch. I mean, way back in 2011, Microsoft started recommending you reinstall the operating system if you got caught by a particular rootkit. And malicious software these days has evolved to the point where even non-targeted commercial malware has such advanced evasion capabilities built into it, it's probably going to persist the cleaning efforts that you try to run. Sony's blunder is a really good one here, you know, trying to put some anti-piracy measures in a really underhanded way, resulting in a bit of furore around its copy protection rootkit that I've had. You know, they provided a fix to remove the software, but that in turn opened up the endpoints to even worse vulnerabilities too. And this goes beyond malware incidents as well. You know, it applies to breaches of all kinds. So we live in a very litigious world now, and there's a lot more finger pointing between businesses when it comes to dodging the blame for security breaches taking place. And the amount of assurance around good security throughout the supply chain is just going up and up. So do you want to just boot an attacker out of your system, or do you want to rebuild the whole thing from a known good backup that you have, or even start from scratch? It's going to take a hell of a lot of explaining. The same system got compromised twice, and that's not the sort of explaining I enjoy doing. So, what have we learned? Well, apart from a whole bunch of useful stuff about basic security techniques, we should remember one thing. There's no cure for the zombie virus, and there's no end state for security either. It's a moving target. It's constant vigilance, learning, and determination are required to protect your important data and keep the flesh eaters at bay too. So keep a spare clip close to hand, make sure your security changes actually worked, and you never know what you might find in a sporting goods shop. So thanks for your time, and let's take a moment to reflect on one thing. At least the rabbit made it out alive.